Trump is the only president and is the first president to put gamers first.
President Trump just signed a new executive order, and it could be the biggest news for gamers who haven't heard yet. Games are being censored, not by Steam though,
That's right.
but by the banks that handle the money. This new executive order is the first legal step in stopping this. Recently, if you haven't heard, some games were removed from the Steam store, but
That's
this
right.
wasn't because of a bug or a developer's choice. Instead, it happened because a big payment company like MasterCard decided that a few games were a reputational risk. This is a vague rule that lets them pressure a company like Steam to remove any games they don't like. As a result, the banks that handle the money for Steam got involved, creating a chain of pressure.
They create the chain. They don't do it directly. They do it through middlemen so they can avoid being directly accountable. Will he also allow gamer words to be used again? His final executive order at the end of his term will be legally mandating the allowance of the F word again. You're going to be able to call your friends the F word, and you're going to be able to call anybody the F word.
To the games actually being removed. This is a big deal because it shows that a third-party company that handles the money, not the government or Steam itself, is now deciding what we can and can't buy. This kind of power is a form of digital censorship, and is especially concerning since a new rule was recently added to Steam's guidelines that gives them the power to remove content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors. The thing is, the Steam situation is just one example of a much bigger problem. It's part of a growing trend of these payment companies censoring or even debanking anything they don't like. Debanking is when banks or payment companies close accounts or refuse to work with people and businesses.
I don't see how this isn't illegal. I mean, having a bank account is necessary in today's day and age. How the fuck can you just take away somebody's bank account? Like, I mean, really, like, that's like taking away a person's internet or somebody's water or something like that. They do it via terms of service. It should be, having a bank account should be viewed as a utility in the same way that water or internet is a utility. That's really what I think.
Reasons that aren't actually about money. The censorship we're seeing on platforms like Steam is very similar to how banks debank people. The payment processors are essentially saying, if you don't remove this content, we will stop doing business with you, which means you can't get paid. This is a direct financial threat. It's what itch.io stated when they said they had
like banking is, I mean, there's no universe where you can imagine that banking is not an essential service. In the year 2025. It is. It is an essential service, and it needs to be guaranteed for everybody.
To act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. And also when Valve said if they didn't remove the games, it would prevent customers from buying games and content across Steam.
That's right.
The White House announcement calls this politicized or unlawful debanking and highlights how some financial institutions have restricted access.
The person making this video is making a slight correlation error, even though in effect they're right. Trump is mainly doing this to avoid, like Nick Fuentes is the best example of this, right? Wow, what a surprise that Nick Fuentes can't get a bank account. Who could have guessed? But he should be able to get a bank account. He can get an internet subscription. He can get water. He can get electricity. He should be able to get a bank account, even if the people at the banks don't like him. Because he's a gay Nazi? Well, what's the logic that a gay Nazi can use the internet, but they can't have a bank account? Well, I feel like you should either be able to... Okay, so it should either be both or neither, right? It doesn't even make sense. Yeah, what is this? You shouldn't have either? I think you should just... I think that unless you're breaking the law, you should be able to get the service. That's what I think. I think it's actually that simple.
Access to services on the basis of political or religious beliefs or
keep politics out of utilities. Yeah, exactly. What about registered sex offenders? Are you really trying to draw a correlation between a person who has political views that are generally seen as unfavorable and a literal sex offender? Go back to Reddit. You fucking retard. Get out of here. You're so dumb. You're the biggest dumb idiot I've seen today. And I looked in a mirror today. That's bad.
Business activities. So this isn't just about video games. Something similar has happened to cryptocurrency companies, legal gun stores, and even anime stores. The White House announcement points to other examples as well, such as when federal regulators suggested banks flag individuals who made transactions related to companies like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, and again, like this is, you read this, state capital, federal government suggested institutions flag individuals. Like, in my opinion, I think that what they need to do, this is what I would do. If I was in the federal government, I would figure out who was the one that actually made this suggestion. And then I would charge them for voter intimidation, political intimidation, or something like that. Political prosecution. That's what I would do. Like, one thing... Like, if I ever became president, my biggest inhibitor would be the 8th Amendment. Let me just say that. The fact that they let this shit go on is embarrassing. It is absolutely embarrassing. That's the one for cruel and unusual punishment. That's, yeah. Yes.
Networks are essentially the roads of the digital economy. By controlling these roads, these companies can stop anyone they disagree with from doing business, even if they haven't broken any real laws. So to fight back against this, President Trump has signed a new executive order called Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans. This is a direct response to what the president's office...
The first gamer president. Gentlemen, we're fucking back. I never thought that in our darkest hour, when our anime, cat girl, incest, waifu video games were being taken away from us, our knight in shining armor would be a orange 79-year-old man who says everything's computer when he steps into a Tesla. I would have never expected this. Not in a million fucking years. It's Baron pulling the strings. So dad, so there's like, okay, you know, like those like cartoons from Japan? Yeah. Okay, so they're making some of them against the law because it's like, fucking weird, right? So like, can you make a law against not doing that? Because there's a lot of guys on the internet that are mad because they like those cartoons, but then the Visa doesn't want them to have the cartoons, so we gotta take them away. Yeah, Baron wanted to play a Gooner game? Maybe you're right, man.
Calls systemic abuses by financial institutions that undermine free expression and economic opportunity. This new rule tells federal groups that watch over banks to stop using vague reasons like reputational risk in their guidance and manuals.
Wow, bro, he just puts this in. He just goes and says it. You know what they've got to do, though? We've got to see if Nick Fuentes can make a fucking account. Because if he can't make an account, they're not following the law. That's what I think. Yep. Yep, they've got 6 months. I don't understand. Does this executive order mean that payment processors can't threaten online stores anymore? So if you look at this right here, remove the use of reputational risk. So basically what he did is that he went after banks for removing conservatives, but what he did is that he did it in an overarching way and in a way that is so categorical that it will affect also Steam and other payment processors as well. So, and this is from the White House. I'll read this right here. Removing reputation risk. Within 180 days of the date of this order, each appropriate federal banking regulator shall, to the greatest extent permitted by law, remove the use of reputational risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking, as well as any other considerations that could be used to engage in such debanking from their guidance documents, manuals, and other materials. This is massively overreaching in a good way, in a massive way. Like, this isn't just about conservatives. He actually saved gamers. Straight up. They don't define other? Exactly. That means that it means whatever the fuck they want it to mean. Yeah, we need to debank to save our democracy. Yes, the most important thing to save democracy is to prevent people from being able to vote. And so anyway, but what if a company is a foreign one? Will that work on foreign companies? Absolutely. Because if a company wants to do business in the United States, it has to adhere to United States laws when it's dealing with United States citizens. And if it doesn't do that, then it has a problem. That's the way it works. I mean, and that's the way it should work, by the way. If you want to do business in a country, you have to follow the country's laws. Duh, of course. I think Trump watches your stream. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to see this. I'll tell you that. I hope Valve takes down the guideline before people backlash because it's still keeping it. Well, they're going to keep it for a while because stuff like this realistically will take probably a year to resolve. But after that, it'll be over. The removal of such concepts shall be made clear by each appropriate federal banking regulator through formal guidance to their examiners. This is massive. Like, this doesn't just affect conservatives. This affects everything.
The order is specific, stating that regulators must remove the use of reputational risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking. From now on, banks must make their decisions based on clear financial reasons. The order also directs federal banking regulators to review banks for any past or current policies that encourage politicized or unlawful debanking and to take action, including charging a fine. The ultimate goal of this order, as stated by the White House, is to ensure that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their beliefs, affiliations,
or political
views. This is meant to...
That's a beliefs or affiliations. If someone believes in incest, that is your right as an American. That's right. If you believe in incest anime games, that is your right. Reputation equals financial stake loophole, I bet. No, it won't matter because they can easily... The thing is that in order to do that, they would have to provide a parameter for it. And then by doing so, they would reveal that they're not actually upholding that law or that rule. That it wouldn't work.
To prevent any financial unfair treatment and give fair access to banking for all legal businesses and people. So how does this new order connect...
Wait, hold up. Just a minute. I want to read that again. Banking decisions must instead be made on the basis of individualized, objective, and risk-based analyses. There it is. Banking is not being used as a tool to inhibit such beliefs, affiliations, or political views. Done.
So how does this new order connect directly to our problem on Steam? This is where the details of how payments work become really important. As Valve confirmed in their response, MasterCard didn't go directly to Valve and tell them to remove the games. MasterCard communicated with acquiring banks. These are the banks that handle the money for businesses like Steam. MasterCard cited one of its rules, Rule 5.12.7, which says that a business can't process transactions that may damage the goodwill.
See, isn't this crazy how you can just literally make a law and just invalidate their terms of service and tell them what to do? Isn't it crazy how you can just do that? You don't have to listen to these fucking retards at all. Yeah, you just get enough people together and then take their rights away. Problem solved. Fuck them.
The corporation or reflect negatively on the marks. It's important to know that Visa has a very similar rule, just showing how this is a widespread issue across the payment industry.
Nope.
This is a perfect example of a vague reputational risk clause. MasterCard didn't have to prove the games were illegal, just that they were a risk to their brand. This was in response to a small number of complaints from the activist group Collective Shout. The acquiring banks, fearing that they would lose their partnership with a major payment network, then pressured Valve to remove the games. Valve complied, which is why they weren't fully debanked. So the executive order aims to stop this by forcing financial institutions to justify their decisions based on individual, objective, and risk-based analysis. The key difference is simple. Risk-based analysis is about measurable financial threats. Reputational risk is about feelings and public opinion. The new
Ho's mad. Yep. Ho's mad. Complete Karen annihilation. I've been waiting on this for a while.
Executive order is designed to stop financial companies from using the second one as an excuse to shut down legal businesses. This could protect game developers from being unfairly censored. So what can we expect now? While this executive order is a major step, it has its limitations. Some might argue that it doesn't mean much because it can't directly regulate companies like MasterCard or Visa. However, the executive
just do another one. If they think they're going to get around it, just do another one. Just do that. Yeah, just make another rule. Yeah, the thing is that, it gives them an out too. Exactly. And it's so easy. Like, everybody's like, oh, well, what if they try to get around it? Yeah, he's incorrect about reputational risk. I have experience in compliance for a financial institution. Reputational risk is quite complicated, but not really hard to do analysis and state as fact. I think that you can easily explain reputational risk in terms of a financial analysis. I don't think that this law is against that. This law, like, whenever you're talking about reputational risk, he's talking explicitly about making subjective judgments based on cultural criteria. It's not what we're not talking about, like, oh wow, somebody doesn't want to do banking for Tren de Aragua, or they don't want to do banking for a cartel. Yeah, okay, that's fine, because you can clearly... Actually, you know what? They probably do. I bet those guys pay their shit on time. I do. I bet they never fuck that up. But let's say it's some other group of clowns that is doing it wrong. Yeah, they do? Of course they do. They have to. Yeah, exactly. Of course, 100% they would. Yeah, I mean, again, like, you know this if you've done anything illegal. Like, there's a level of trust that you exist on, and the level of trust that you have to exist on whenever you're doing shit that's illegal, 3 or 4 levels higher. So yeah, it's probably no issue at all. Anyway, everybody learned from Al Capone? Yeah, and look, that's just how it is. They don't want Capone? Yeah, exactly. My point is, though, is that we're not talking about a financial probability calculator for chargebacks or refunds. I think that you and I would both agree that that's a valid reason to debank somebody, because they're effectively using your service in a bad way. But I think that what this is clearly about is it's about social pressures for cultural decisions. That's really what's going on here. Obviously, that's what's going on here.
Order does create a powerful incentive for banks to stop caving to this type of pressure. If an acquiring bank knows that it could be fined by a federal regulator for acting on a reputational risk concern, it's far less likely to do so. This could make the vague rules of payment processors effectively powerless. According to Valve's newest statement, they were pressured by these banks, citing MasterCard's rule. So while Valve wasn't formally debanked, they were put in a position where they had to choose between censorship...
Well, they were threatened to be debanked. I mean, being threatened to be debanked is the same thing as debanking somebody. Like, I mean, functionally it is. They're saying, I'm going to shoot you unless you do something. Like, that's not really that much different than shooting somebody.
and a massive financial threat. This is the exact thing this executive order is trying to stop. Looking forward though, this executive order could pave the way for more changes. We could see new legislation like the Fair Access to Banking Act gain momentum in Congress. This act, which has seen bipartisan support, aims to prevent banks from using subjective, non-financial standards when deciding who to do business with. A new
I can't believe we're actually having a Gamers Rise Up moment. It's actually happening. Holy shit.
Law would have way more power than an executive order. It could directly and legally stop.
He's right about this, is that you need to make something like this a law. An executive order is like a band-aid.
Payment networks from denying service based on a business's legal activities or political views. The details of the bill are designed to force this change. For example, it would prevent banks from making decisions based on unfair and random standards, a legal way of saying a decision made without a good, clear reason. The bill requires banks to have a written
it's very simple. They should only be making decisions based off of a financial analysis. It should have nothing to do with a financial and legal analysis. I think legal is also important. So, like, if you're making a decision like, oh, well, this is, like, a problem because, like, of their viewpoints or something like that, anything that is outside of a financial or legal analysis should not come into play. Karen's made this possible. If they didn't force Visa, this would have never been a bill. I think that it still would have, because this has been a problem that's been going on for a while with conservatives, like what I said with Nick Fuentes and also with Trump and other conservative groups. Like, for example, there was a website called Patreon, which was a Patreon alternative for people that were trying to raise money, but their stuff got removed from Patreon because for whatever reason it was politically incorrect or some form problematic. This probably will be the same thing. That's kind of what I'm expecting.
Documented report showing a risk-based analysis for all decisions. This means they would have to back up their choices with clear, factual information, not vague concerns about their brand. This would be a more permanent solution, like treating these payment companies as essential services.
Yes, so they're essential utility service. That's how they should be treated, because that's what they are.
If the pressure from payment processors start to disappear, the new rule on Steam would become unnecessary and could pave the way for a return to a more hands-off content policy on the platform. So, although the fight to stop censoring games is not over yet, there are some signs it might not last forever.
I cannot fucking believe I cannot fucking believe it was him. I thought JD Vance was going to be the first gamer president. But it turns out we already had one. Give this video a like. I didn't even know about this. I didn't know that it was overreaching. Why would a not bank have the right to deal with business with whoever they want or reject, assuming laws are followed? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. There's already discriminatory laws that are being made. And also, do you see the problem? See, and I understand your idea is that an individual has freedom of association, and because they have freedom of association, they should choose who they can and who they want to and who they don't want to do business with. I understand your thinking, and I can see where you're coming from. But here's the problem with that, is that whenever you're talking about, oh, well, they can do whatever they want to do, the issue with that is that whenever they want to do something, it always ends up being bad for the individuals. That's the issue. It's naive. Yeah, exactly. And also, we have a lot of laws already that make that not the case. And whenever you're controlling a monopoly inside of a market, you also need to be regulated. There are monopolies in America right now, but those monopolies are regulated by the government and they have higher standards of behavior. And so really, whenever you're open to the public, when a business is open to the public, you have to indeed be open to the public. It's that simple. So you can't just, randomly decide, oh, well, you know what? I don't like what you're doing. I don't like what you're saying. We're not going to do business with you. And I think it wouldn't be that big of a deal if only Visa did this or only MasterCard did this. But the problem is that they all do this. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and I think a few other ones do it as well. So, yeah, Michael Knowles got totally debanked, and he's a milquetoast conservative. Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, exactly. It's collusion. Yeah, exactly, right? They work in lockstep with each other. And so, anyway, this is a massive fucking W. I am so happy that Trump did this. Give the video a like. I'm super, super happy. Yeah,